So, today we're going to talk about what is probably the single biggest trade story on the entire planet that you might not have even heard of. Seriously, it's a project on a continental scale, and it's aiming to completely reshape the economic future of Africa. To really get a sense of just how huge this is, let's kick things off with three simple numbers.
First up, 54. That's how many African nations have signed on to this incredibly ambitious agreement. We're talking about creating a single unified market. Only one single country on the entire continent hasn't signed.
Next number, 1.3 billion. Yeah, billion with a B. That's the combined population of this new economic zone. Think about that. A consumer base and a workforce that is absolutely massive. And it's growing fast.
And finally, $3.4 trillion. That is the combined GDP. So you put all of that together, and what do you get? You get the largest free trade area in the world by the number of countries participating. It is just massive.
Okay, so those are some pretty stunning headline numbers, right? But what is the AfCFTA, really? What's the grand vision here? And how is it actually moving from a dream into a reality?
So, AfCFTA, it stands for the African Continental Free Trade Area, and it's being led by the African Union. At its heart, the mission is to create one single market for goods and services. That services part is super important. The big goal here is to just dramatically boost trade between African countries. You know, for decades, it's often been easier for a country like Kenya to trade with the UK than with its neighbor Nigeria. The AfCFTA is designed to completely flip that script.
And listen, this is not just some idea sitting on a shelf collecting dust. Things have moved at lightning speed. Just look at this timeline. The agreement gets signed in 2018. Just 1 year later, in 2019, boom, it legally enters into force. By 2021, the first official trading actually begins, and then in 2022, they launched something called the Guided Trade Initiative to start piloting real-world trade, to really put the rules to the test.
So, how does this whole massive free trade area actually work? What makes it tick? Let's pop the hood and get into the engine room to look at the two really critical pieces that make it all go.
First up is a really bold plan to get rid of tariffs. You know, those taxes countries put on imported goods. The goal is to eliminate tariffs on 90 of all goods over the next 5 to 10 years. Then, another 7% of what they call sensitive items get a longer phase-out period. And only a teeny tiny 3% of products can be excluded altogether. That is a huge commitment to opening up markets. Now, this is where it gets really important and kind of technical, but stick with me. For a free trade area to work, you have to know which products actually get the benefits, right? That's where rules of origin, or ROO, come in. The best way to think of it is like a passport for a product. It's the official proof that something is genuinely made in Africa, which means it qualifies for all those low or zero tariff perks we were just talking about. So, how does a business actually prove its product has this passport? Well, you can go the official route and get a certificate of origin from the government. But, and this is a real game changer, you can also just self-declare it on an invoice. This is a huge, huge deal. It just slashes the red tape, making it so much easier for small businesses and entrepreneurs to get in on the action and trade across the continent.
Okay, so that's the plan. It's ambitious, it's exciting. But as you can imagine, turning a plan of this size into reality across 54 different countries is, well, it's a monumental challenge. So let's do a little reality check. Let's look at the real-world progress and some of the pretty big hurdles that are still in the way.
First, let's start with the really good news. Remember those super complex rules of origin? An incredible 92.4% of them have already been agreed upon. I mean, getting dozens of countries to agree on thousands of product rules is a massive diplomatic achievement. The last 7.6% includes some tricky sectors like textiles and cars, and those negotiations are still going on.
And the progress is not just on paper. That pilot program, the GTI, means real goods. We're talking Rwandan coffee, Kenyan batteries are already moving across borders under these new rules. We've got new digital tools like the African Trade Observatory, which gives businesses the market data they've been desperate for. And this is crucial. There's now a system in place to report those other barriers, the endless paperwork or the crazy delays at the border, so they can finally be identified and hopefully fixed.
But this really gets to the core of the challenge. It's about closing that gap between ambition and reality. The dream is one single unified market. But the reality is that roads, ports, and logistics still need huge upgrades.
So much of the old infrastructure was built to get resources out of Africa, not to connect neighboring countries to each other. The goal is frictionless borders, but a lot of those non-tariff barriers are still there. The vision is one set of rules, but businesses are still dealing with a complicated patchwork of older regional trade agreements.
So, with all that in mind, what's the road ahead look like? The foundation is being poured, for sure, but some of the hardest and most important work is still to come. This really is about building an entirely new economic future from the ground up.
And I think this is the most important takeaway. The AfCFTA isn't an event. It's not a switch that somebody flipped one day. It is a long, complicated process. The framework is there, the rules are mostly there, but its real success is all going to come down to implementation. It's about turning this incredible continent-wide vision into real, concrete action, country by country, business by business.
So, the blueprint is drawn. It's detailed, it's ambitious, and it is absolutely packed with potential. But the final question that we're all left with is this: who is going to step up and actually build the house?